Quiet Place is the perfect example of a genre movie, a horror film that has a very unique premise. It elevates it above the slasher, gory, hands being chopped off and blood spouting out of arteries and that sort of things, or gory monsters. Although the monsters are quite horrific. I wasn't crazy about the monsters, but the whole setup is just brilliant. If you make a sound, you're dead within 3 minutes or something. And then, of course, you cast your wife, the brilliant and beautiful Emily Blunt, and you sort of it's a bit of a slam dunk. You've probably seen the trailer, but you have 3 young children and they have to play very quietly. Nobody can speak to each other. They have to sign, and the little girl is deaf, so that's really cleverly woven into the story. And imagining trying to keep children quiet and trying to have a conversation with your partner, and you can only do sign, or you just can't speak. Of course, the kicker is when Emily Blunt goes into labor. She has to give birth completely silently. I think even the men in the audience were on the edge of their seat at that bit. John Krasinski, not his first film. He's written things, he's written television and stuff, and he didn't have the original idea, but he clearly adapted it to his own needs and made the film not about aliens invading the earth, which of course is what has happened, but also about family and what one is prepared to do to save your family or keep your family safe. A classic ghost or horror film or alien film has to go beyond the bumps and the jumps and the scares. You have to have an underlying thread through the story, and that's been done very successfully here. In fact, the screening I went to had a Q&A with John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, who just come across as the most amazing couple. Oh God, can they really be this? Not just in love with a young family, but creatively very connected. That really comes across every interview together, and it was no different on this occasion. And one of the questions was, had he recognized or deliberately inserted the biblical references to the film? Because there's an element of self-sacrifice. He receives a wound to his side, and then this questioner mentioned the sacred child. John Krasinski just loved that. He was like, well, yes, there was something that I felt was a higher message, but he hadn't connected the sacred child or the wound in the side. So, and I'm beginning to discover this with my writing, is that you're really excited when people notice tiny little details, that you have a character make a gesture, or there's something placed in the scene that will pay off later, and somebody who reads it catches that. It's always like, oh, good, okay, that's working. That didn't go for nothing. And then every so often people find something that you didn't think of, that you didn't write in, but their interpretation of it, what they saw the story as, was something else. And you could see him go, oh, yes, oh gosh, now you mention it, it really is there. It hadn't really been intended, and that's like a magic moment for filmmakers and storytellers. That was good. He did the classic Jaws thing where you have to wait a long time before you see the alien or the creatures that are pursuing them. If you make a sound, they have this extraordinarily highly sensitive hearing system, but they're blind. A creature in the woods or something outside the house, and that is very scary when they appear, but they don't appear because they're so quick. And then, of course, eventually you have to let us in on these horrific things. And sometimes, nearly always, I'm a little bit disappointed because they've CGI'd the heck out of it, and they have to really over egg it a bit. That would almost be my only criticism of it. But I understand that for true horror fans, for people who want that excitement, they want to see the imagination of the CGI artists being stretched to their limits. Then there are some silly bits. There's a moment when the basement has to flood, and of course it floods really quickly for dramatic effect. And I noticed she never fed that baby, not once. She had to give it a little oxygen mask and put it in a soundproof cot so it didn't make a noise. But you could have just latched it on and it shut right up, wouldn't it? This is an interesting thing that the director said about not giving too much backstory or flashbacks at all. He has a space where he works in his workshop with newspaper cuttings and notes that he's made and things that he's learned about these creatures in order for them to survive. And he mentioned that, you don't always have to say those things. He's learnt that one of the biggest mistakes that screenwriters and directors make is thinking that the audience is stupid. We've got to tell you this and we've got to tell you that and watch out for this because it's coming up later. By the very fact that he had researched everything and collated all of these images and that they were somewhere in the frame sometimes, some people will see it and acknowledge it. I certainly did. I certainly saw the journey of them coming to this farm prior to us joining the film, so to speak. And that some people will see all of that and absorb it, and some people won't see it, but their eye has still taken it in, that the brain still sees and somehow informs how they receive the film. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do with Widow's Walk. We've had feedback at test screenings and stuff, and they say they wish this was said, or why didn't she say that to him? And I've deliberately not done that. But at the same time, everything in the film is something. A glass of milk, sheets hung out to dry, a Victoria sponge cake. Nothing goes for nothing. So if you have an audience that's prepared to let all of that stuff unfold, then you're onto a winner. But sometimes they want more information given more literally, and that's a different film. But having said all that, I forgive all the little dramatic licenses taken. I thought it was brilliantly acted. The children are amazing. He's wonderful. She is incredible. And I saw it for the second time. I still leapt out of my skin at every place I was supposed to jump. So, even when the jumps are coming, you still have to jump. So 4 out of 5 entertainment value. I learned a lot as a filmmaker. Yeah, good film.